But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. How is everybody doing today, chat? Let me just get to the right windows. Now, I've got a few options here. Last week we were looking at just how much Steve the Destiny is even more of a complete piece of shit than we realized, or well, at least than I realized. Clearly some people were aware. And I've got a few options I was looking at. We've got Caleb Muppet. What is globalism/imperialism? And the fact that it's globalism/imperialism, as if those concepts were the same thing, tells you a lot. We've got Pim Tool. Trump floats shutting down FEMA. U.S. begins freeze of foreign aid, except for aid to Israel and Egypt. Which is, I mean, aid to Egypt is really aid to Israel as well. We've got fucking Ben Twetpiro asks, did China just drink our milkshake? And what the fuck does that even mean? Like, does our milkshake bring all of China to the yard, or what's the deal there? I don't know. We've got Xanderhole, who we haven't heard from a bit. Trump can't tell friend from foe. He's attacking our allies. We've got from, where did it go? We've got from FD Signifier's Signified B-Sides at why I don't think we should waste our time making anti-Trump content. I'm kind of curious about that. He's not on this list because he's a jabroni, but because he's talking about a jabroni, and I'm kind of interested in his thinking here. Then, along similar lines, we've got Katie Montgomery, who has started streaming and making videos again after something of a hiatus, talking about the way Sarah McBride just sort of has gotten under the bus and joined in with this idea that the Democrats are pushing, that trans people's civil rights are a big distraction. Hey Adria, hey Riveroon, how you all doing? So, kind of curious about this FD Signifier thing. I think we might start with that and then move on. It's a relatively short one. It's like 14 minutes. Give that a go. Oh yes, the Caleb one sounds classic.
America worships power, and I have some thoughts.
Before he has some thoughts on it, I need to turn the speaker up so I can actually hear what his thoughts are.
It's about what to do about that. I wrote this the morning of the inauguration, recorded it, I don't know, couple weeks later at this point, we'll see Donald Trump.
He's this FD Signifier is somebody I always hear good things about. I've watched what videos of his I've watched have been quite good, and I just have so many things that I'm watching. It's like I never end up watching all that many of them because like other things in my rec show up, and it's like, well, I'll end up watching that, and I watch that for 2 hours, and then suddenly it's time to go to bed. And
is now the president, the second president ever, I believe, to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. The first president to be a...
Yeah, it is the second. The first was Chester Alan Arthur, who's probably best known anymore for mutton chomps. That's his main thing. I mean, I'm sure he also did war crimes, but mutton chomps are the only thing I remember about him, and the 2 non-consecutive terms.
Felon, adjudicated rapist, pull a rug pull on a Bitcoin, and all kinds of other awful shit that if you watch me, you probably know about. But also, if you don't watch me, you support Trump, you probably also know about this stuff. This stuff is not a secret about Trump, and if you pay attention to Trump...
And also, I mean, if you're watching FD Signifier and you support Trump, like, is it an accident?
Trump supporters, you'll find that they know every bad thing that we know about Trump, yet people keep saying those bad things as if it's supposed to mean something. And
yeah, I mean, and that is the thing with so much of what, like, the liberal approach to Trump has been, like, in the first term as well, where it's like, we're gonna talk about his tax returns. Like, I mean, he's a billionaire. Of course he doesn't pay tax. I mean, nobody's going to be shocked by that. Nobody's going to be surprised. But he's also a scumbag. Yes, the people who like him think that's cool about him, actually. They think they like the scum in the bag, and they like how he combines them.
And one of the first things I want to make clear to people as to why I'm not going to be wasting a lot of time talking about Trump is that the things you dislike about Trump, the people that support him love about Trump, so it doesn't make sense to keep telling them. It really...
Yeah, I mean, also, the question is, I mean, who are you trying to reach? Are you trying to reach a bunch of fucking white nationalists and bootlickers who, it's worth noting, are actually a very small minority who only actually managed to get anywhere electorally because of vote suppression and the fact that we have an absolutely ridiculous electoral system in the U.S.? Or are we going to talk about what we need to be doing, what we needed to be doing anyway, because there's not a whole lot that, you know, pretty much you turn over a horrible thing Trump's doing, and it turns out, wow, the groundwork was laid by somebody other than him. Somebody we're supposed to like better than him, but actually really doesn't fucking deserve it.
Really doesn't. Like, these people were there 4 years ago when Trump was president for all the other awful things that happened. These people know about January 6th and the felony charges. And
yeah, and they don't give a fuck.
Money scamming charges. And yet he was reelected this past November in a near landslide.
Well, it turns out Greg Palast, who has been covering vote suppression since George W. Bush stole his first election, has pointed out that actually if you look at the number of ballots that were just binned without being counted, based on bullshit reasons, on, you know, racist voter ID laws and vote suppression laws, or based on completely pointless defects that were just used as an excuse to avoid counting them, Trump actually lost. Like, literally, if you were to... There's every reason to believe if every ballot had actually been counted, he probably would not have won it. He wouldn't necessarily have... I mean, it's still... The thing is, abstention won. Abstention still won. Because the thing is, that's the only reason that you can actually have these things count so much that they could be decisive.
And many reports indicate that he'd have beat incumbent Joe Biden, even worse than he beat Kamala Harris.
Well, I mean, which doesn't mean any... It's worth noting, that doesn't mean anything. he's historically unpopular. And the Democrats insisted that there were like 2 people they'd be willing to run against him. Both of them also historically unpopular. Both of them people nobody really wanted. Like, Harris was so certain that her campaign, her primary campaign, was going to be a disaster. She didn't even want to wait to find out what her own state was going to do. She was out before the fucking Iowa primary. Like, so this isn't an indication of him being popular, it's worth noting. And I hope that's not where he's going, because, like, the numbers don't back that up.
At Biden not dropped out of the race. This was never a thing about changing minds when it comes to this guy. And you might be...
that I agree with, absolutely. There's no need.
Asking why? Why can't a man with 1 failed term as a president, a history and litany of business failures, criminal activity...
and here's the thing about the business failures, and why that's just kind of a silly thing to spend a lot of time on. He fails in a very special way. He fails in a very special, like, capitalist way, where the cost of his failure is generally paid by the people who do business with him, rather than by him.
And of course, treason ever become president again? Well, most of it can be summarized in this image. Him standing up after an attempted assassination.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that made any I mean, the people who would have been impressed by that are exactly the people who were already supporting him in the first place. Nobody's mind was changed by that shit.
Looking quite powerful and iconic, you can't deny that considering the context of this moment. It's one of the reasons why there are conspiracy theories around this assassination attempt, because it does quite neatly fit into the way Trump has always portrayed himself in the media.
Yeah, although on the other hand, he's also somebody most people hate, and a lot of people are quite reasonably terrified by, so it's not exactly surprising that there might be some people, including, like, far-right people, because the people who actually were involved in these attempts were both fash. I mean, there are far-right people who actually don't like him because he didn't do the things they wanted him to do.
If you're one to pay attention to the semiotics of Trump, you'll notice that Trump takes great measures to always look almost cinematically powerful in public, despite his obviously bizarre appearance in general.
Yeah, I mean, look at the camera angle here, for example. And there's also... God, what I was about to say a thing, and now I'm not actually getting it. And now it'll come back to me. Fucking hell.
Especially at critical moments, like when he returned from the hospital after recovering from COVID, or requiring that his
COVID had one job.
Mugshot for his Georgia trial be taken only after he has appropriately prepared himself. It's a very intentional tactic that is a part of his brand and political appeal. Trump always has to be seen as having the upper hand, regardless of the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that you have a situation where, this is the reason liberal stuff falls flat on when it comes to, like, trying to tell, like, fucking Trump supporters a fool's errand to begin with, why they should change their minds about the guy, is they're scoring on a different card. Like, their fucking point system is totally different. They look at, they look at Trump say something, it was like, oh, that's fucking, first of all, that's complete bullshit. Second of all, it was incoherent. It doesn't even make any fucking sense. And wasn't that also kind of racist? And the people who support him are like, holy shit, he said some completely nonsensical bullshit, and it was racist. I love this guy.
Why he never apologizes, never backs down, never takes blame, never takes accountability.
And it's worth noting those are not specific characteristics of him. When was the last time you actually heard any top U.S. politician take any kind of fucking responsibility for shit that they completely fucked up? For things, for, like, just horrible things that they did that harmed a lot of people. When was the last time one of them got in front of you and said, yeah, I really shouldn't have done that. If I had it to do over, I wouldn't do it over again. It was a bad idea on something that mattered, like, that actually affected millions of people. I don't think it's been in my lifetime. I don't think it was before my lifetime. I feel like I would probably have read about it, because people would be comparing, if there had been a history of that kind of accountability, that kind of just elementary taking of responsibility prior to, I don't know, like the first president I remember is Reagan, that I was born under Carter. Well, but like prior to the 80s, you'd be hearing people compare all of these assholes we've had since then to that, and saying, why is it that none of them take any responsibility anymore? But so my feeling is probably none of them have ever done that. I mean, like George Bush the First had that moment where, after shooting down an Iranian passenger liner, almost certainly deliberately, he said, "I don't apologize for the United States. I don't care what the facts are." And then, when Obama had his first term and everybody had all these fucking illusions about who he was going to be, despite the fact that he told us who he was going to be, you had this thing where he made his first world tour, and every country's going around, journalists in every country are like, trying to find out, is he going to take any responsibility or apologize to any of the people that, like, any of his predecessors have done, absolutely unforgivable things to. And each time he's like, no, I'm not going to apologize for the United States. I don't care what it is. Fuck you. And the thing is, on this, we have this in common with the rest of the world, in that they don't apologize for fucking us over either. Like, so that isn't a Trump thing. I mean, yes, he puts a certain stank into it. There's a certain fuck you in there as well. But the idea of zero accountability is standard.
He says the most ridiculous things, but never addresses their ridiculousness. It just says, no, that's actually right, what I said, even if it's something complete nonsense, even if it's gibberish.
The disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection?
It's still...
the time he said injecting bleach. And I have to say, I do not believe it's a coincidence that liberals were still taking COVID seriously when the official face of telling people to pretend COVID was nothing was a guy who also told them to inject bleach.
Correct, because Trump is always correct in his head and in the heads of his fans. To a sensible person, this is awful. This is not what you want in a leader. But to a lot of Americans, this strong man persona is exactly what...
I mean, a lot, yes. I mean, if you put them in one place, it's a large number of people. If you compare them to the total number of people in the country, it's actually a small minority. He is not popular.
They want, what they think America needs, and what they aspire to in themselves. Now, if you've watched some of my older videos about insert rapper or media figure here, some of that might sound familiar. A lot of what I just said about Trump can be said about the fans of a lot of famous figures, whether it be your favorite rapper from Toronto.
It's been a long fight. It's been a long fight, and I just had to have a warrior spirit, and that's all.
Or Chicago. Or maybe your favorite singer from Texas, or streamer currently involved in a weird sex case, or manosphere sex trafficking.
Nice.
Everyone with the stand following.
I mean, the wild thing about Andrew Tate, like, just the sheer arrogance of the man is, he isn't so much accused of sex trafficking as he did a stream where he actually said that that's how he made his money. He just openly said it.
Toxic with that following. The ones that do know how to weaponize their toxic stand base do really, really bad things. Hence, our new president. I know some of y'all didn't like me.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really... The numbers don't bear that out. The thing is, if there were anyone marginally popular on the other side, there would have been absolutely no question of Trump getting in again. But there wasn't. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Biden did the same thing. Biden did this thing, I mean, like, I remember when he won the primary through, like, the most blatant manipulations imaginable. Just absolutely just in-your-face manipulation of the 2020 primary. And he's like, well, you know, a lot of people want to as somebody said, a lot of people would like to have universal health care. And he goes, fuck you, I won the primary. Clearly they want what I want. And it's like, no, nobody likes you for you. Nobody gives a fuck about what you want.
Using this term before, but I have to again. I'm gonna have to double down here. Americans are a bunch of betas. America worships power. We're all a bunch of bratty subs. The amount of tweets and statements and songs.
I mean, see, this kind of essentializing I don't think is helpful. Actually, I have to disagree on this. Because the thing is, it isn't America. It is it is, however, the people who are really, really, really obsessed with being America. Like, if we're using that as a, like, political definer of a roughly, a quarter to a third of the voting population, or, well, the population of eligible voters, I should say. And in terms of the real fanatics, we're talking about half of that, then yeah. But the thing is, the Democrats did not run a campaign to win. They would have had to do just a couple of things, you know. Yeah, and the polling kind of bears this out. 1, arms embargo, no weapons to Israel. 2, actual, like, fucking universal health care. They'd be extremely popular if they did it. Everybody, you know, most people wanted it, including a whole lot of people who vote Republican want it. Yeah, and actually make a stand against all this far-right shit, as opposed to inviting the far-right onto the stage at the fucking convention.
Saying daddy's home when Trump was inaugurated, the joke writes itself. But let me seriously engage with the concept so I can graduate from using such a controversial term. When I say beta, I really...
Yeah, I mean, it grates on me too, because it's like, we know more than this. I mean, yeah, it's good for a hot take, I'll give that. But, and it certainly describes a certain segment of the population, I think, reasonably well. But we have a lot of information, a lot of data on exactly what segment of the population that is. I mean, this isn't, like, more than twice as many people didn't vote for this guy as voted for him. So maybe let's not just assume that the fact that the roughly less than 1/3 actually of the electorate who voted for him accurately speak for the other more than 2/3 of the electorate who did not.
Mean weak-minded and insecure people who aspire to and worship power and talent that they never have.
I mean, what he's certainly describing. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at the figures, it's like 36 million didn't vote. It's like, and then 31 million votes went to Trump that were counted, and then 30 million went to Harris. Like, I mean, if you add 36 plus 31 million, you got 67 million. That is way more than twice what the number of people who voted for Trump. So, I mean, talking about this like everybody voted for him, the thing about landslides in this country is most of them you wouldn't even have to fucking stop your car. You could drive right over them, because the margins are so tight compared to the actual overall number of people who are legally entitled to vote.
They champion and promote those who they see as powerful. They become stands to that power and do what they can, where they can, to reinforce.
I mean, I will say this does describe a certain segment of liberals as well. I mean, some of the things he said really do not just apply to Trump supporters. Like this thing, I mean, you see this in, like, the number of people who, when, like, Democrats do some obvious bullshit, Es que no hay políticos de izquierda en este país. No existen. You know, who like act like the West Wing is real, and that, you know, if they're doing some bullshit, it's not that they're doing some bullshit. It's just that they're so fucking clever. They're so fucking smart. They're the smartest people in any room, and if it looks like bullshit to us, that's just because they are as gods unto us. You know, there is very much that sort of attitude among a certain segment of liberals, as well. That also exists. I mean, I guess it's part of what has been called blue MAGA, and I think that's not a bad description of it. Except it's even more pathetic somehow. Because I can actually kind of see beyond the, like, racism and all that shit. All the, like, central, you know, the central, like, substance of what MAGA is about. Just, you know, white nationalism and homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, etc. But when you look beyond that, part of why there is this thing is because the guy that it crystallizes around looks like something different. Not because he really is something different, but because his presentation is as something different. There is a certain iconoclastic thing going on in that he doesn't seem to care how he comes off to, you know, your Harvard-educated news presenters and people like that. And they like that because they hate those people. But... So, I mean, there is that sort of... so I can kind of see where that's come, but, like, getting this fanatical and cult-like around the most non-iconoclastic figures of men, like Joe Biden, like the guy whose whole thing was nothing will fundamentally change. That, I mean, that's just, like, I have trouble understanding that.
And keep it away from those they think should not have it. What fans of certain guys fit that description? Trump, Elon Musk, Kanye West, Jordan Peterson, Drake, etc.
Yeah, okay. So, misogynists and fash, basically.
I'm not saying there's no one that genuinely appreciates the work of these figures in some weird form.
Well, I mean, you put in Elon Musk and all of a sudden it's like, what work? He's never done anything. Like, I mean, like fucking Drake or Kanye West or fucking Diddy or whatever. I mean, you know, they did lay down tracks. You can listen to them if you want to. There is a thing that they did that you can appreciate. Elon Musk didn't do shit. He's never done shit in his life. He doesn't know how to do shit.
Fashion, but you'll notice they attract a certain type of stan who literally will spend their free time on the internet harassing people who don't like their fave or dare to criticize them for saying anything negative about them. They feel like criticism of this figure is criticism of them because they've attached themselves.
It is a cult mentality
to this image of this.
I mean, and here's the thing. It's like, and this feels like sort of a writing issue. Because he started off saying, we all, and like Americans are, and everything like that. And he sort of segues into actually saying that, no, that it's about a certain like cult-like following of really, really shitheads. A cult-like following of shitheads. And it's like, yeah.
Powerful.
Then it isn't everybody, though.
Partly in tandem with the actual figure. Again, Trump, Elon, Kanye all present themselves as higher than normal beings because they know that gets this particular fan base going. And this is why if you've ever tried to reason or argue with these types, you realize pretty quickly you're just talking to a brick wall. And
and this is, I mean, and this is also why it is simply hopeless. To try, you know, this whole idea that Democrats sort of win over the moderate white nationalists and stuff by being worse than Trump on the border and all that kind of bullshit. That was never going to work. because the people who want that shit, who actually are, make that central to the way they want things to work, the central to what they want to see happen in the world, they're happy where they are. They've already got the person they want. They want somebody who will allow them, who will, like, exemplify their, like, fucking basest drives.
Actually talk sense into them. And this is also why I think this particular Trump term is already starting to feel different. And in some ways that's good. And it's also, again, why I'm not gonna bother talking about Trump a lot in my content for the next 4 years. Don't get me wrong. Trump has already started out doing all the worst things we feared, gutting DEI programs, although I need y'all to understand that DEI was always trash. Like,
you see, seriously, it's just some shit to avoid getting sued for discrimination.
People that are going to get hurt from DEI programs are white women, and I don't wish bad upon those white women. But understand, the real purpose of DEI was never being met anyway, but that's maybe another video. He's pardoning domestic terrorists, they're attacking LGBTQ and trans people, and of course deporting countless immigrants across the country.
And it turns out, I mean, that is certainly their goal. They're trying to. The daily totals that they're publishing are actually less than Biden's average. Trump remains number 3 in the of the last 3 presidents. The most deportations were under Obama. The second most were under Biden. Trump's first term was number 3. Yeah, I mean, honestly, on a certain level, I think it's useful that there's no opposition party, that the Democrats aren't even really pretending. Because when the Democrats pretend, when they have credibility, then it becomes that much harder to organize any kind of actual resistance to this stuff.
So there is resistance to that, but the public resistance, the amount of attention that people are paying to this, doesn't seem to be as significant. And
that's not true. I mean, it's not getting the kind of coverage in the media, but actually, like, meetings at community meetings on what to do about this stuff are filling halls. But the media are doing everything they can to act like that's not happening, like everybody's cool with this shit.
This isn't necessarily a good thing, but I do think it might have some potential benefits. One of which is neutering one of Trump's main appeals, the fan base that loves to see how upset we get at everything he does.
Yeah, no. I mean, no. Because the thing is, actually, people should get upset about these things. Like, I mean, honestly, queer person here, I think people absolutely should be fucking kicking off over the fact that there is an attempt to, like, take away, completely, like, unilaterally, forcibly detransition trans people. People should be kicking off about that. People should be kicking off about the fact that this facially invalid executive order banning best practices care for trans youth, it has resulted in so-called trans safe states like New York. Hospitals have already stopped providing care. They are fucking sacrificing their patients rather than troubling their lawyers. Completely in advance of need, because you can't stop that. You can't ban that by executive order. That's not how that fucking works. But they're already doing it, and it will cost lives. So no, it's not a good thing. It is in fact a good thing that despite the media's attempt to just act like this is all fine and that everybody thinks it's fine, that people are kicking off at least a little. Not enough, but a little. I mean, the thing that people need to understand about these, like, sort of outrages, things like, I mean, and I'm not just talking about Trump here, I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking about things like the Gaza genocide that has been paused, although it's mostly just moved to the West Bank. The shit, or, like, the bipartisan internet censorship bills and stuff like that. These are feasibility studies. The ruling class want to see how far that they could actually, they can take this, what kind of outrages they can do before they get any kind of serious pushback, before it harms governability. And if they do these things and everybody's kind of cool, they will move on to more abominations. You know, if they don't get any serious pushback when trans people are being massively attacked, and actually the just existence of trans people is being literally criminalized, then, you know, that'll just sort of be a thing, you know, and trans people will just kind of like fucking get killed or flee the country if they can. And, you know, the next one will be, you know, just regular like cis queer people, etc., etc., etc. The only thing for it is to kick off early and often. Governability needs to go to shit.
One of the main appeals for this fan base of any given figure that I just mentioned is the idea that they and their faves are hated. It gives them a collective identity.
That doesn't appeal to them that much, though. It appeals to them in the abstract. When they realize that it means that people's communities will turn out to defend themselves against these goons. Because these aren't just like fucking regular ass shitheads. These shitheads actually go out and hurt people when they get together. That's what they like to do. And they're cowards. They are bullies and cowards. And they, you know, like the IDF basically. And when they find that there's actual pushback, when they find that people are actually fighting back, and that maybe they might catch some hands, they run away because they're a bunch of fucking cowards, like the IDF.
Identity. It imbues them with a sense of power. It's why those folks will go out of their way to be in spaces that don't want them.
The funny thing is, that did not last. Let's not retcon the lessons we learned last time, and that have been learned so many times all over the world. These pricks like to be in those spaces. Until they realize that people in those spaces will fucking kick their asses and make their lives very difficult. And then they run out of those spaces. Which is why, through the entire thing, like the biggest fucking... Until the pandemic started. And, like, the people who would normally be out there, like, countering these fash pricks were trying to avoid fucking getting a, you know, lethal, debilitating, airborne virus. They could barely manage like 100 people coming together, and that's with people flying in from all ends of the country. They do not like being challenged. They like the abstract idea. See, because when they have the abstract idea that people hate them, they feel powerful. When they get the reality, when they open up, when they do the fucking Wish unboxing, and they get the reality of people hating them and not wanting them anywhere near their communities, and not wanting them attacking their communities and, you know, making, you know, all the shit that they do, then they realize, holy shit, this is dangerous, this isn't what I signed up for, and they don't come back for the most part. We need to remember that. We shouldn't be forgetting that shit. That is an important thing to remember.
Just so they can troll and gloat about their presence there, so that they can ruin people's moods and fun.
Yeah, except that only works if nobody's challenging them. The minute people are challenging them, they fucking shit themselves and run away.
It's why they mark themselves so explicitly. That red hat that we see, that's on purpose. They want to be identified.
And they actually started to go off that red hat towards the end of the first term, specifically because that red hat meant that they had to deal with the fact that most people don't like them.
To be understood that they are part of that group, that you are not, and that they don't care.
See, I mean, and another thing that annoys me about this, actually, is these people who are actually a small minority are constantly told by their far-right media propaganda universe that they're in the majority, that everybody loves them, actually. That the only reason that, Fortune 500 companies make a point of pretending that they're not, racist or transphobic or whatever, is that there's some sort of weird conspiracy going on. And the thing is that only works if they don't test it. If it's tested and they actually get to see what it's like when they show up in a town like Pikesville, Kentucky, which they figured was totally going to be their kind of place. Middle of nowhere Kentucky, rural community. They thought this was totally going to be their place. They were outnumbered. They flew in from all of all around the country to Pikesville, Kentucky. And they were out in a tiny little town, and they were outnumbered by the people who wanted them to leave. And that wasn't good for them. They had a lot of recriminations. Like, this is bad advice. This is actually bad advice. Like, I thought he was going to be talking about not focusing specifically on Trump, the character, but focusing on, like, actually what's going on and what to do about it. But this feels like sort of pretending that this feels like something different that I'm not really there for.
Like, I remember the one goofy dude before the election. He's probably still doing this. He would just get on airplanes all the time and wear his MAGA hat and just stare and make faces at the camera. Like, that's his whole content. Now, I don't know if this dude has a TikTok, but I know y'all know who I'm talking about. That's them in a nutshell. People that cover their entire pickup truck in Trump paraphernalia. That's a person that wants to be identified as going against the mainstream or whatever.
Yeah, except they think they are the mainstream, though. They don't think that they're going against the mainstream. Like, every single media outlet they listen to tells them that they are the entire country. It tells them that they are the normal people, that they are everybody, that it's only a few weirdos who disagree with them. And the thing is that when they're those people that, I don't know whose truck that was in particular, it doesn't matter, but they go around it physically attacking people. Let's just remember, I mean, like, at these, like, fash rallies, the last time, they averaged like one attempted murder each time. Like, either they try to run somebody down, or they'd shoot somebody, or they'd stab somebody, or they'd shoot at somebody.
And with just like, I don't know, a Kanye West, it's not necessarily a big deal, it's just music. But when you get to Trump and Musk, it's much bigger because the authoritative fandom behind them connects to real power that now affects everyone. But now I think people haven't went through at least one Trump term, and the general lack of belief that people have in investing in and being fans of Democrats right now.
Which isn't the same thing. Like, yeah, the thing is, if we remember as far back as 2016, I almost said 1916, the Democrats were in the shitter, actually. It took them a while. Like, nobody liked Hillary Clinton. Nobody likes Hillary Clinton. Nobody ever liked Hillary Clinton. It was a wild decision to go with her. If you looked at the polls, the only Democrat, I'm not going to say the most popular Democrat, the only popular Democrat was Bernie Sanders. And the Democrats were just absolutely were floundering. And yeah, it's not a matter of being fans of Democrats. It's a matter of defending your fucking communities, getting together and organizing. Yeah, the Democrats are not going to be on side with that, because the Democrats are actually more on side with what fucking Trump's doing than they are with anyone trying to defend themselves against it. They don't give a fuck. I mean, it's a false dichotomy.
It feels like a lot of opponents of Trump and what he stands for are just calmly bracing themselves for the next 4 years. They're not producing the same outrage cycle that I know existed back in 2016. It almost feels like apathy.
Yeah, well, yeah, except who are you talking about? I mean, if you're talking about media outlets, yeah. Media outlets have decided, they've been sort of nurturing this move towards fascism that's been going for at least 30 years. And they've decided that I mean, part of what they saw was the massive popular mobilizations, the militant mobilizations, like fucking the uprising against police terror in 2020. For like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and there was at least one person who was actually murdered by the cops in the middle of the fucking thing. And the thing is, the ruling class doesn't actually like it when governability goes to shit, and they realized if they keep on doing this, governability, you know, if they acknowledge the outrages, then governability went to shit pretty quickly. I mean, not as much as it needed to, but I mean, it took a few hits. But so they're gonna try to suppress it and see if they can manage that. I don't think it's gonna work. But I mean, I feel like this is like talking past. He's like not good. Making the kind of there are important distinctions here, because there's like media people, there's like the like general population who largely also aren't like fans of the Democrats, but the people who were out there actually like standing up and defending their communities last time mostly weren't fans of the Democrats either.
But there maybe is a positive byproduct. To be clear, we don't need actual apathy. I want to make sure people understand that apathy and doomerism is not useful. Someone recently said, shout out to whoever you are. I'm sorry, I can't remember where I got this from. I watch a lot of YouTube and talk to a lot of people. Doomerism is just giving yourself permission to give up. That's what it is. And we don't need that. That's not helpful. That's not useful. People.
I agree. I mean, I think the one thing we can't afford is to sort of give in to despair, even if it does actually kind of feel naheliegend. Yeah, even if it does even if it is kind of tempting, I suppose.
That are most prone to doomerism are often people that will survive the situation regardless of what happens. And that is not being a true ally to those out there that are going to be most affected by what's happening. So we don't need doomerism. But
okay. I mean, this is good.
What we need is to channel the energy that you would put into performative activism and protest marches and meme comments and Twitter fights into local community engagement, political education, and organizing. That's what we need going forward.
Well, yeah, but it's what kind of organizing though? Like, if it doesn't involve like protests and actual like community defense efforts, which he seems to be sort of pushing back against. But maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Just want to make that clear. But I do think that starving this particular population of fans' attention and fuel is a good thing.
No, it really isn't. The thing is, God, see, this is actually like the way that people think that measles and polio aren't a big deal because vaccines were so successful. The reason that it feels like you can say this about, let me just be clear, fascist paramilitaries who are reasonably well armed, even if they have all the discipline of, well, an IDF TikToker, and probably can't shoot half as well. The reason that it seems like you can just ignore them and they'll go away is because they never got to get big, because nobody ignored them. They showed up, local people immediately came and made sure that they fucked off. And that meant that the only people who are willing to actually go to these things for these fash assholes were the people who were really tough and were willing to take a few hits, and that's only a handful of fucking people. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is really bad advice, actually.
So much of what the right has built their current media and political strategy on is transmuting our attention and anger towards them into motivation for their base. Shout out to my favorite moderate, suddenly leaning a little bit more left, brother Kamal. He said something on his stream last night where basically he's realizing that conservatives only care about the fact that the left is cringe. They're not even engaging with the reality of what conservatism and the right wing is doing. They just care about addressing the cringe.
Yeah, except no, they're doing other things. Addressing the cringe when they talk about cringe, they're mostly talking about they have these so-called cringe compilations. I'm pretty sure, chat, you've probably heard of this, and all it is hate watching to like incite people to feel cool with the idea of violence against marginalized people, especially queer people, but not only.
This is not a logical or like high-minded analysis from them, but it does speak to something about the fact that they don't actually care about the politics or reality of the situation here.
But they do care. They actually do. They are literally trying to do things. They are trying to create facts. They are trying to create a situation where their goons can act, with impunity, where like basically every single working class gain, every single gain by marginalized people can just be reversed. And what they ideally would like is what they want to be able to say, because they actually do say this in their fucking media, that that nobody gives a fuck about trans people, that you can actually just have an executive order that basically says, kill all trans people, and suddenly and nobody will do a thing about it. Because it fucking emboldens them when they do that. They do care about actually doing specific things, especially when it comes to money and power, and their ability to just sort of enact violence whenever they want to. So I don't think it is that divorced from the reality. The thing is, you pick any fucking right-wing media ghoul you want, and they're all funded by extremely rich people. Extremely rich people who want to stay that way. Who support reactionary bullshit and fascist violence specifically because they want to. Because they want to actually preserve their power, and they think it's the most effective way. So, no, I don't... No.
They just want our attention and energy. And if we
No, that's not all they want. Like, they could get our attention and energy a whole lot of other ways. The way they're doing it, like, by shooting people and running people down in cars and beating people up and, like, all that, and, harassing people in public toilets and stuff like that, that's not just about attention.
That we're doing something to starve them of momentum. And I think
but this assumes that the momentum, the only way this works is if you assume that literally the only thing that gives them momentum is us noticing them, like they're Schrödinger's fast or something like that. And no, like, they have goals, they have things they want to do, they have people they want to hurt, they have money that they want to channel upward and stuff like that. They have objectives. So, in fact, the reason that a big part of why Trump did not actually achieve much of what he said he was going to do the last time was precisely that there was so much attention on it, and so there was so much public outrage, that people responded forcefully because it was horrible shit. The reason the Democrats get away with a lot of the same shit is because that doesn't happen as much. Like, I can't get with this analysis at all.
This is one of the reasons why I'm not going to be doing much Trump content going forward. Not just for my own mental health, which obviously I care about, but because there will be enough attention given to him by other creators, by the actual news cycle. They will report on his activities. And thus, I don't think a lot of extra content is necessary. I don't plan on being a part of that ecosystem. I think the fewer people that are, the better. I have one.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate because the idea that if we don't do anything about it, it won't happen is nonsense. I picked this up thinking I was going to be agreeing with him because I saw that title and I figured, he's going to be talking about, it's sort of Trump the cartoon character, essentially, rather than the actual things happening on the ground and what to do about them or something like that. And no, this is bad, actually.
one more video related to Trump plan as I reevaluate my post-election take for a couple of reasons. But after that, that's kind of it. And I hope more people do the same. Literally don't feed the trolls by tracking his every move and complaining about it online.
The reason that he wasn't able to deport all that many people last time, just to give one example, the reason that the Fash actually were rarely able to actually get any kind of numbers together the last time was that people talked about it and they organized around it. Buenas noches.
Channel that injury into work. Organize can start simply in creating a group chat amongst peers and neighbors to do whatever you all need to get done to survive the situation. I know not everyone is in an area with organizations, but you can still identify ones that you're not connected with.
I mean, this isn't bad. I would agree this isn't bad advice at all. But it's like, if you're already saying kind of don't pay attention to what he's doing and don't talk about what he's doing, because somehow if he's able to do it without anyone remarking on it, then suddenly he will stop doing it, which feels like the argument that's being made here. I mean, chat, am I completely misreading this? I want to, please tell me. You've been hearing this too. Do you feel that I am being unfair or inaccurate in the way I'm saying? Because if somebody else has another interpretation of what he's saying, I would like to hear it. What do you think, chat?
Send them a few dollars or coordinate resources or just join a mailing list. Anything is better than doom scrolling and leaving mean comments about how you can't believe he said or did insert thing he's saying or doing now. Now, one thing I think people are going to be looking for is media to help understand and engage with the reality of what's going on here. And one suggestion I have is a documentary, Boomers, which you can only find on my streaming service.
Okay.
In Boomers, Tom Nicholas goes through a thorough examination of the Boomer generation, which is,
this does not really... This is my, absolute least favorite excuse for political analysis. This whole gerontocracy thing, it's all generations and things. Guess what? There are plenty of people in that age range who actually are not fucking billionaires who think that it's great that people can't get health care because you can profit off it. And to make this about the gerontocracy, what then the solution is what? Have younger neoliberal ghouls and younger fascist ghouls? Who gives a shit? I don't... I'm not a fan of this sort of analysis.
Mostly Gen Xers, because most of the boomers are dead. Probably a good thing. It's dope on a few levels. One, because it takes a balanced and very honest look and critical look at generations of people greatly responsible for the state of the world as we see it.
Yeah, again, generations of people. It's a class of people. In every one of those generations, as that that montage was showing us, there were people fighting against this shit.
Right now. But most significantly is an example of the elevation of quality and ambition going on at Nebula. Tom is...
Okay. This is just an advertisement. I should say, I have a lot of time for Tom Nichols. I like his content for the most part. Actually, I haven't, let me scratch that. I haven't actually seen something of his I don't like. But we are going to switch over to Caleb now.
There are some things that we need to be absolutely clear about before we start talking about Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, but of course. Yes, he has to be properly introduced. Yeah, well, he's perpetually constipated, I think it is. I think that Caleb's life and his demeanor would improve no end if somebody explained to him that you're supposed to cook the porridge. Cook the cream of wheat, Caleb. You'll feel better and you'll come off better.
And the new administration in Washington, D.C., and building our movement. Before we do any of that, we have to address some basic things, because I get very annoyed seeing this headline. I just got the latest issue of The Economist.
Oh, he feels very annoyed that even The Economist is pointing out that, yes, obviously...
this headline, the imperial presidency.
It's worth noting the imperial presidency is a term from legal history, and it refers to the fact that the presidency, especially since World War II, has constantly taken on all sorts of new powers on all sorts of levels that are nowhere given to it in the Constitution.
Project 1897, and I'm shaking my head.
No, you're not. You're talking about shaking your head. Do it. Actually do it. Enough talking about shaking our heads. We need to shake our heads.
Absolutely shaking my head.
No, this is going to be, he's going to be talking about how globalism and imperialism are the same thing.
Because nobody knows what imperialism is.
Speak for yourself, Leb.
And if you don't know what imperialism is...
Imperialism. Wow.
You're politically lost.
Your fucking title to this video says it's the same thing as globalism, which is just another way of saying Judeo-Bolshevism.
You are absolutely politically lost. So what are they saying with this headline? Well, they're saying...
Well, maybe look in the... I mean, it's The Economist. It's a dog shit publication for rich jabronis. But, I mean, maybe look. I think what it's talking about probably is all the executive orders, considering that he's standing on reams of paper. Because that is an example of the sort of thing that falls under the concept of the imperial presidency. All the fucking sorts of presidential powers that the executive branch has kept on just acquiring out of nowhere since about 1945.
Saying that, Donald Trump has talked about expanding the United States to Canada, to Greenland, and to Panama.
Oh, well, yeah, and indeed he has. And now, Caleb, that is, like, you're going to tell us, he's about to tell us why literal colonial expansion of a colonial state is not imperialism, I guess?
And they're recalling the Spanish-American War and
I wonder why.
The U.S. Colonialism and territorial expansion of the 1890s and early 1900s, and they're saying that that's what imperialism is.
Well, I mean, it is actually what imperialism is.
So Donald...
Well, I mean, it's not all... Sorry about that. It's not all that imperialism is, let me be clear, but it is certainly, this is imperialism. This is like the classic form of it, where you have a, like, physical expansion of the state.
Trump must be a big imperialist.
Well, yeah.
Right? And he's got his top hat on, and they're saying, oh, Donald Trump is going back to the age of imperialism. Well,
we've never left the age of imperialism.
This is deeply frustrating to me, right?
Yeah, I can imagine it's deeply frustrating to you, Caleb, because you keep on claiming to be a fucking anti-imperialist, and the guy that you stand every fucking breath that you take wants to invade Canada, Greenland, and Panama.
And this is what they teach in school. I was taught America was one time an imperialist country. A long time ago, they said.
Yeah, I mean, and that is problematic because the U.S. is more of one now. But your problem here doesn't seem to be that.
You know, we took over Cuba. We took over.
Turtle Island. Don't forget that there was like a huge amount of imperial expansion to get from Plymouth Rock to fucking California, wasn't there?
The Philippines. And there was a time in like early 1900 where we did engage in territorial expansion.
Only in early 1900? Wait, chat. Is that when? So before early 1900, the United States was just like a little fucking small bean colony around Plymouth Rock, was it? And then all of a sudden in 1900, they did fucking territorial expansion. Is that how that worked?
And that was imperialism. But we stopped doing that, and now the USA is not imperialist. Because that's what imperialism is, we're told. It's when a country expands its own borders. Well, that's not what imperialism is.
It's part of what it is, though, surely. Is he going to deny that that's part of what it is?
That's called colonialism.
No, not necessarily, because that territorial expansion does not actually necessarily include direct colonization. But yeah, I mean, colonialism is definitely a part of imperialism.
And that's colonialism. When a country seizes territory and it makes it part of its own country, that's called colonialism. And
is it called colonialism?
Colonialism started with the Spanish, right? Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, 1492. And
I think somebody like needs to prop up his neck.
And you know, the Spanish also started going into Africa, and then the British got in on it, and you know, the French and the Portuguese, and the
Germans and the Russians,
countries of Europe. As they were emerging from feudalism into modern capitalism, they engaged in seizing parts of the world that were, quote, newly discovered because...
And also, it's worth keeping in mind, they were, at the time, also constantly seizing parts of each other. Like, if you look at the borders of countries in continental Europe, between, like, say, the 16th and the 20th centuries, they didn't stay the same for long.
Because they hadn't seen them and claiming them for themselves. And that was the age of colonialism. But that is not what imperialism is.
Well, it's part of imperialism, though. Like, have you ever heard this idea, chat, that imperialism and colonialism are two completely separate, unrelated things?
Imperialism.
He likes to make that, like, he likes to pop that P. Imperialism.
And colonialism are not synonyms.
Okay, yeah, true, they're not.
Imperialism is an economic system.
You think colonialism isn't?
Imperialism is not a policy. It is not something that a country engages in.
Well, I mean, it's certainly, like, an economic system is a thing that a country engages in. Like, you don't, every economic system, every, you know, political system does involve doing stuff. Stuff has to be done, otherwise the thing isn't a thing.
Imperialism is a system. And if you don't know this, you are politically lost. Imperialism is not annexation.
Well, I mean, that is a thing that is part of imperialism. It is a way that imperialism can take place.
Not changing or moving a country's borders. It's not mistreating other countries.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by mistreating, because, like, the whole point of imperialism, I mean, what he's trying to do here is, like, find a way to sort of fash up the highest stage of capitalism shit. Yeah, which, I mean, I have to say, I'm not a real fan of the works of Lenin. But I do tend to think he has a point on his analysis of imperialism. But, the thing about imperialism is the whole point is for the ruling classes of imperial powers to acquire labor, resources, and markets in order to expand their fucking system of commodity production and exploitation and make profit. So that does necessarily involve mistreating other countries. Not mistreating other countries just to mistreat them, but mistreating other countries in a specific way with specific aims.
Imperialism is a system.
He keeps saying that like that's all you need to know. It's a system. Well, I mean, a Commodore 64 and a fucking, Ryzen 5600 PC, those are systems too, of a sort. But there's some differences between them. They have characteristics. You gonna talk about the characteristics?
I cannot say this enough.
Yeah, we can tell. You've said it a lot already. It's 4 minutes in. You've said it like 20 times.
Imperialism is a system.
Is imperialism a system?
What is imperialism?
A system?
Imperialism is...
a system! I got it. What do I win? Probably a shitty John Brown Volunteers button and a room... 1/6 of a room in a shitty hotel in Jersey City.
An economic system. It is an economic system. How many times... I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to say...
This is a 1 hour and 38 minute and 14 second video. How many times is he going to fucking say it? Is he going to, like, move beyond that?
Again, and I'm going to say this again. Imperialism is an economic system.
What were the overheard words by the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?
And I am at the point where I understand what imperialism is.
It's an economic system, yeah. Yeah, we're at that point too, I think.
3 different ways. There are 3 different angles through which you can understand what imperialism is. The first one is the angle that predates Lenin, that began around the time of the American Civil War, and even before that. The first kind of glimpse of what imperialism is that I would point to, the first observation of the economic system of imperialism, I would trace back to Henry Charles Carey. Henry Charles Carey was an economist in the United States who was an economic advisor to Abraham Lincoln, and he was very...
Oh, he likes Lincoln's head. He owns a huge Lincoln head.
Very opposed to slavery. And he wrote a pamphlet opposing slavery. And the pamphlet was intended to point to the economic roots and foundations of slavery. Why did slavery exist? That's what he was writing about in this.
Oh, you just said that.
Pamphlet. Why is it that in America, we're this modern country that fought a revolution against the British, why do we have slavery? And in this pamphlet that Henry Charles Carey wrote,
he said it's an economic system.
Explaining the way the slave economy of the South worked and how that was contrary to the North and everything that he wrote, he ended his pamphlet with this very, very important passage. And this is what Henry Charles Carey wrote.
I can't wait to see if it's something that Caleb actually understands.
Systems are before the world. One looks to exporting men to occupy desert tracts, the sovereignty of which is obtained by aid of diplomacy or war. The other to increasing the value of an immense extent of vacant land by importing men.
Vacant land, note. Just sort of pretending that there weren't hundreds of, millions of people living there.
Millions for their occupation. One looks to the concentration of wealth and power in a great commercial city, which shall rival the great cities of modern times, which have been and are being supported by aid and contributions which have exhausted every nation subjected to them. The other, to concentration by aid of which a market shall be made upon the land for the products of the land. And
yeah, I'm actually not impressed with this quote because it seems like he's describing two sides of the exact same coin here. Because the way that market works, it ends up concentrating the money, etc. And, I mean, let's just remember, he started out by claiming that the land is vacant, which, no, it fucking wasn't.
The farmer and the planter be enriched.
I mean, and the thing is, what we have to remember, I mean, it's easy to, people will be like, oh, well, yeah, he's a product of his time. But the thing is, in his time, it would be much harder to overlook the fact that the fucking continent wasn't vacant. Because there was still way more indigenous people everywhere. They hadn't actually finished, killing huge numbers of them. When he was writing this, they hadn't actually managed to expand all the way, fully expand across North America, really. They'd set up, fucking colonial settlements in a lot of places. But in terms of actually, maintaining cohesion, they weren't really quite there.
One looks to increasing the necessity for commerce. The other to increasing the power to maintain it. One looks to...
Yeah, again, two sides of the same coin. These aren't two different things. This is, all part of
the Hindu and sinking the rest of the world to his level.
Wait, what?
Underworking the Hindu and sinking the rest of the world to his level.
Well, that's not racist at all. Why exactly? Remind me, Caleb, what was going on in India then that might have led somebody to describe people in India in this way, when India just 100 years before that was one of the fucking wealthiest countries on the planet and completely outperforming, leaps and bounds ahead of Western Europe by all sorts of metrics. This is a great quote to be using. I'm sure Jyoti Brar would love this fucking quote.
Level. The other to raising the standard.
I mean, I imagine she, even, turf though she is, might be able to offer some context about why that's a kind of a fucked up thing to say in the 1860s already.
And throughout the world to our level. One looks to pauperism, ignorance, depopulation, and barbarism.
Oh, well, now we know why he likes it so much. Malthusianism.
The other to increasing wealth, comfort, intelligence, combination of action, and civilization.
I mean, again, these are two sides of the same coin because I know he stopped pretending to be a communist, so it shouldn't surprise me that he's coming up with this shit and, just putting it out there. But, even he, you just go back a couple of months, was pointing out that, yeah, both of these things do coexist in capitalism. That you have, there's that, classic fucking line that it is a system that has somehow managed to massively increase the volume of its wealth without doing anything to reduce the volume of its misery.
One looks toward universal war, the other toward universal peace.
Yeah, again, this is just two sides of the same coin. But it is time to start wrapping up. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in. It's always good to see you. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And if you did enjoy the stream and you think that what I'm doing here is enjoyable and worthwhile, and you can, I would really appreciate support for the Ines Almond project and my other work. I also want to drop you a link. I wrote a thing on my Substack, that I think is quite good. I had been meaning to write it for a while, so let me just drop this into chat for anyone who's interested. And if you want to support the stream, which would be a real lifeline for me, I'm dropping a link in chat for that as well. Thank you so much for joining in. It's always great to see you, and I will be back at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time tomorrow.